Pay attention to this video. August 18th, 2022, 9:42 p.m. Southridge Plaza parking lot, Des Moines, Iowa. The footage comes from a fixed security camera mounted high on the northeast corner of a grocery store. The lens looks down at 3 parking rows. The image is slightly washed, no audio. At 9:42:03, the lot is mostly empty. 7 cars are parked. The lights flicker at regular intervals. Nothing moves. At 9:42:11, a silver 2014 Toyota Camry enters the frame from the right. It moves slowly. The wheels turn left. The car parks head in, 1 space off the curb. The engine shuts off. The headlights remain on for 4 seconds, then go dark. At 9:42:22, the driver's door opens. A man steps out. He is later identified as Daniel Mercer, 32 years old. He is wearing dark jeans, a gray hooded sweatshirt, and white sneakers. He stands still with the door open for approximately 3 seconds. His right hand remains on the top edge of the door. His left hand reaches briefly into the car, then withdraws. At 9:42:29, he closes the door. He does not lock the vehicle. The interior light remains on for several seconds and then turns off on its own. At 9:42:36, Daniel takes 4 steps forward, then stops. He looks down at the ground near his feet. His shoulders remain level. His arms hang naturally at his sides. There is no visible phone in his hands. At 9:42:44, he turns his head to the left, toward the far end of the parking lot. No other vehicles enter the frame. No pedestrians appear. At 9:42:51, Daniel adjusts the sleeve of his sweatshirt using his right hand. He exhales visibly in the cold air. His posture remains upright. At 9:42:58, he begins walking away from the car. His pace is steady. He stays within the painted lines of the parking row. He does not look back. At 9:43:12, Daniel exits the frame at the bottom left corner. The camera continues recording the empty space he left behind. At the time this footage was reviewed, authorities believed Daniel Mercer had voluntarily left town. What is discovered later will change how this moment is understood. This is the last time Daniel Mercer is seen alive.
10 days later, August 28, 2022, 6:17 a.m. A call is placed to the Des Moines Police Department from a prepaid mobile phone. The caller does not give a name. The voice is male, calm, measured. The call lasts 42 seconds. The caller provides a location, a service access road behind the old Midwestern Freight Warehouse, 3 miles south of Southridge Plaza. The building has been vacant for over a year. No businesses operate in the immediate area. There are no residences within direct sight of the road. The caller disconnects before dispatch can ask follow-up questions. At 6:39 a.m., the first patrol unit arrives. The road is gravel. Tire tracks are visible, overlapping and indistinct. The officer follows the road for approximately 200 yards before stopping near a line of overgrown brush that borders a drainage ditch. At 6:43 a.m., the officer locates a body. The body is identified later that morning as Daniel Mercer. The position is recorded before any movement occurs. Daniel is lying on his right side. His legs are bent slightly at the knees. His arms are close to his torso. His clothing matches what is seen in the parking lot footage 10 nights earlier. His shoes are still on. His wallet is found in his back pocket. Cash remains inside. His phone is not recovered at the scene. There are no signs of a struggle in the immediate area, no broken branches, no displaced gravel, no visible drag marks leading to the location. By 7:12 a.m., the area is taped off. Detectives arrive shortly after. Photographs are taken. Measurements are logged. The body is removed at 8:04 a.m. That same morning, Daniel Mercer's name appears briefly on a local police blotter website under the category Death Investigation. No cause is listed. No details are released. For Daniel's family, this is the first confirmation that something is wrong. Until that point, they had been told Daniel left voluntarily. On August 19, the morning after the parking lot footage was recorded, Daniel failed to report for his scheduled shift at a packaging facility on the east side of the city. His supervisor attempted to call him twice. Both calls went unanswered. This was noted but not escalated. Later that afternoon, Daniel's older sister, Lauren, sent him a text message asking if he wanted to come over for dinner that weekend. The message was delivered. No response followed. By August 20, Daniel's absence had begun to concern his immediate family. He had not contacted anyone. His social media accounts showed no new activity. His bank account showed no transactions after the evening of August 18. Lauren contacted the Des Moines Police Department to report Daniel missing. The responding officer conducted a brief intake. Daniel was listed as a 32-year-old adult male with no known mental health issues and no reported threats made against him. He owned a vehicle. He had a job. He had no criminal record. During the intake, the officer noted that Daniel had recently argued with a family member about money. The note was brief. No details were expanded upon. Because Daniel was an adult and there was no immediate evidence of a crime, the case was not classified as urgent. The officer suggested Daniel may have left town voluntarily and advised the family to wait 72 hours. Over the next several days, the family made repeated calls. They were told the same thing. Adults leave. Adults cut contact. Sometimes they come back. On August 23, Daniel's car was located. It was still parked at Southridge Plaza in the same space seen in the security footage. The vehicle had not been ticketed. It had not been towed. There were no signs of forced entry. The gas tank was nearly full. Inside the car, detectives found Daniel's backpack on the rear seat. Inside the backpack were his work gloves, a water bottle, and a folded pay stub. Nothing appeared disturbed. The car keys were not inside the vehicle. Despite this, the working assumption remained unchanged. Daniel had walked away. On August 25th, police issued a short missing person bulletin. It included a still image taken from the parking lot camera. The timestamp was cropped out. The description read, "Last seen leaving his vehicle on foot." No mention was made of where he was believed to be going. 2 days later, the anonymous call came in. After the body was identified, police notified the family in person. No cause of death was provided at that time. The investigation was described as ongoing. Later that afternoon, during a brief press statement, a spokesperson said there were no immediate signs of foul play and that authorities were still working to determine how Daniel ended up at the warehouse access road. The security footage from Southridge Plaza was not mentioned. The parking lot camera had captured only what it was positioned to see: a man parking his car, a man standing still, a man walking off frame. What happened after that remained unaccounted for, and at that point, investigators believed it always would be. Daniel Mercer lived less than 6 miles from the parking lot where he was last seen. He rented a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a low-rise complex near East Grand Avenue. The unit faced the parking area. Neighbors later told police they often saw Daniel standing outside in the evenings, leaning against the railing, watching traffic pass. He did not socialize much. He nodded when spoken to. He kept his distance. Daniel worked the evening shift at a regional packaging and distribution facility. His job involved loading pallets, checking manifests, and sealing outbound shipments. He had held the position for just over 4 years. His attendance record was consistent. He rarely called in sick. He was known to stay late when asked. On workdays, Daniel followed a predictable routine. He woke around 10 a.m. He made coffee at home. He ate the same breakfast most mornings, toast and eggs. He left his apartment shortly before 2 p.m. and stopped at the same gas station on the way to work. The cashier remembered him because he always paid in cash and declined the receipt. Daniel did not drink. He did not use recreational drugs. His coworkers described him as quiet but reliable. During breaks, he sat alone in his car or scrolled on his phone. He did not complain about his job. He did not discuss personal matters at work. Outside of work, Daniel's life centered on family obligations. His mother, Elaine Mercer, lived alone after Daniel's father passed away 3 years earlier. Daniel visited her every Sunday afternoon. He helped with groceries. He handled minor repairs around the house. When Elaine had trouble with her phone or television, Daniel fixed it without comment. His older sister, Lauren, described Daniel as the one who shows up. He attended birthdays. He arrived early. He stayed late to clean up. He did not talk much during gatherings, but he paid attention. When relatives mentioned needing help, Daniel usually followed up later, quietly. Financially, Daniel lived carefully. He paid rent on time. He did not carry credit card debt. His bank records showed regular deposits from his employer and occasional withdrawals in round amounts. He did not gamble. He did not make impulsive purchases. He had been saving steadily, according to his sister, though he never said what the money was for. In the months leading up to August 2022, there were subtle changes. Daniel began picking up extra shifts. He asked his supervisor for overtime on weekends. He also started driving farther out of his way to get home, choosing side roads instead of the main route. When asked why, he said traffic was lighter. He stopped coming over on Sundays in early July. Instead, he sent short text messages to his mother, saying he was tired or working late. He still called. The calls were shorter than usual. Lauren noticed Daniel seemed distracted. During a family dinner in mid-July, he checked his phone repeatedly. When she asked if something was wrong, he said he was handling something and changed the subject. Daniel did not share details about his personal life. He was not in a romantic relationship. He did not date. He did not bring friends home. His phone records showed frequent contact with one number in the weeks before his disappearance, but the content of those conversations was not initially reviewed. There were no known threats made against him, no reports of violence, no history of conflict with coworkers or neighbors. On August 18th, the day he disappeared, Daniel followed his routine. He worked his scheduled shift. He clocked out at 9:03 p.m. Security badge data confirmed this. A coworker saw him walk toward the parking lot alone. He did not say goodbye. At 9:42 p.m., his car entered the Southridge Plaza parking lot. Why he stopped there instead of going home was not immediately clear. What is clear is that Daniel did not leave behind signs of planning a disappearance. He did not pack belongings. He did not withdraw large sums of money. He did not notify anyone that he was leaving. His apartment remained exactly as he left it. The bed was unmade. Dishes were in the sink. Laundry was folded, but not put away. To the people who knew him, Daniel Mercer did not run away. He paused, he waited, and then he vanished. The first indication that Daniel Mercer may not have been alone in the weeks before his disappearance came from his phone records. Investigators reviewing call logs noticed a consistent pattern beginning in late June 2022. One number appeared repeatedly, sometimes multiple times a day. Calls were short, often under 2 minutes. Text messages were frequent, though their content was not immediately accessed. The number belonged to Michael Trent, 41 years old. Michael Trent was not a coworker. He was not a family member. He did not live in Daniel's apartment complex. His name did not come up during initial interviews. Trent operated a small, informal logistics brokerage. He arranged short-term labor for independent warehouse contracts. His business was not registered under a formal company name. Payments were often made in cash or through peer-to-peer transfer apps. Daniel and Trent met earlier that year through a mutual acquaintance at the distribution facility. Trent occasionally visited the loading docks to recruit temporary workers for off-the-books overnight jobs. These jobs paid more than standard hourly wages and were not reflected on payroll records. There is no record of Daniel signing a contract. What is documented is that Daniel began receiving irregular deposits into his bank account starting in early July. The amounts varied. They were not labeled. They did not come from an employer. When asked later, Daniel's supervisor confirmed that Daniel had not been approved for outside contracting work through the facility. Daniel did not mention this work to his family. Around the same time, Daniel's spending habits shifted slightly. He began withdrawing cash more frequently. He also stopped depositing his full paycheck, leaving portions unaccounted for. On July 29th, Daniel and Trent were captured together on a separate security camera outside a closed strip mall on the south side of Des Moines. The footage shows the two men standing near a white cargo van. They do not touch. They do not appear agitated. Trent hands Daniel a folded envelope. Daniel places it into his backpack. This footage was not discovered until weeks later. Text records show that in early August, Daniel sent multiple messages to Trent asking for clarification about a payment. The responses, according to timestamps, were delayed. When replies came, they were brief. On August 12th, Daniel transferred $3,200 to Trent using a mobile payment app. The memo field was left blank. That same day, Daniel called his sister for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. The call lasted 90 seconds. He asked a general question about whether she thought it was smart to loan money to someone you work with. He did not provide names. He did not ask for advice beyond that. Lauren later said his tone was neutral. He did not sound distressed. Phone records show that on August 17th, the night before Daniel disappeared, he received 3 calls from Trent between 8:14 p.m. and 8:47 p.m. Daniel did not answer the first 2. He answered the third. The call lasted 4 minutes. There are no recordings of the call, but location data shows Daniel was still at work when it took place. At 9:06 p.m., 3 minutes after Daniel clocked out, Trent sent a text message. It contained only an address. That address corresponds to Southridge Plaza. Trent later told police he and Daniel were involved in a side business arrangement and that Daniel had agreed to meet him that night to discuss a misunderstanding related to money. He described the conversation as routine and said Daniel never arrived. There was no independent witness to confirm this. Trent acknowledged owning a white cargo van. He said it was inoperable at the time. No charges were filed. At this stage of the investigation, Michael Trent was not a suspect. He was classified as a person of interest, a designation that carried no legal weight. What remained were patterns, repeated contact, financial dependence, a one-sided flow of money, a meeting location sent minutes before Daniel disappeared. None of it proved intent, none of it confirmed coercion, but it established something else. Daniel Mercer was no longer moving through his days alone, and whatever arrangement he had entered into, it had begun to quietly narrow his options.
The final week of Daniel Mercer's life unfolded without visible disruption. From the outside, Nothing appeared out of place. On August 14, Daniel worked a double shift. Badge data shows he clocked in at 1:58 p.m. and out at 11:41 p.m. During his final break, he sat in his car for 21 minutes. Surveillance footage from the employee lot shows him scrolling on his phone. At one point, he stops scrolling and holds the phone still for several seconds, as if reading a longer message. He does not respond immediately. Later that night, at 12:06 a.m., Daniel sent a text to Michael Trent. "Need this cleared up. I can't keep floating this." There was no reply until the following evening. On August 15th, Daniel called his mother at 6:32 p.m. The call lasted just over 2 minutes. He asked if she had received a utility bill in the mail. She said yes. He told her he would stop by later in the week to look at it. He did not come by. That same day, Daniel attempted to withdraw $4,000 from his bank account. The transaction was declined due to daily limits. He did not attempt another withdrawal. On August 16th, Daniel met briefly with a coworker after work. The coworker later told police Daniel asked if he knew anyone who could move stuff without paperwork. The coworker said no and did not ask follow-up questions. Daniel did not elaborate. Phone location data shows that on August 17th, Daniel drove past his apartment without stopping and continued east for approximately 12 minutes. He parked near a closed auto parts store. He remained in the vehicle for 9 minutes. During that time, he received 2 calls from Trent. He did not answer. He then drove home. That night, Daniel sent a single message to his sister. It read, "Can you watch Mom if I'm busy this week?" Lauren replied asking what he meant. Daniel did not respond. On the morning of August 18th, Daniel's phone connected to his home Wi-Fi for the last time at 10:14 a.m. His search history from that morning included 3 entries: private sale liability, cash repayment dispute, and what happens if you don't show up. At 1:47 p.m., Daniel arrived at work. Coworkers later said he was quieter than usual. He declined overtime when offered. He clocked out exactly at the end of his shift. At 9:06 p.m., Daniel received the message containing the Southridge Plaza address. There was no additional context. At 9:19 p.m., Daniel left the employee parking lot. Instead of taking his usual route home, he turned south. Traffic cameras show his vehicle passing 2 intersections without stopping longer than required. There were no erratic movements, no sudden changes in direction. At 9:42 p.m., Daniel parked his car. The CCTV footage shows him standing beside the vehicle for several seconds. It does not show him checking his phone. It does not show him signaling anyone. What it does show is Daniel waiting. During the 5 minutes after Daniel exits the frame, 2 vehicles pass through the far end of the lot. Neither stops. Neither approaches his car. At 9:49 p.m., a white cargo van enters the lot from the opposite side. The van remains partially out of frame. Only the rear quarter panel is visible. It stops for approximately 40 seconds. Then it exits. The camera does not capture who is inside. Daniel's car remains where it was parked. At 10:03 p.m., the parking lot lights cycle again. The space where Daniel stood is empty. From that point forward, Daniel Mercer does not appear on any confirmed camera footage. No calls are made from his phone. No messages are sent. The last known action he takes is stepping away from his vehicle, in a location he did not choose until minutes before he arrived. Everything leading up to that moment appears deliberate, but nothing suggests he expected it to be final.
The assumption from the beginning was that Daniel Mercer left the parking lot on foot. That belief shaped everything that followed.
What investigators did not initially focus on was the timing. At 9:49 p.m., 7 minutes after Daniel walked out of frame, the white cargo van entered the lot. The camera did not capture its front. Only the rear quarter panel appears briefly at the edge of the image. The van pauses, the brake lights glow, then it leaves. At the time, this was dismissed as unrelated traffic. It was not logged. Weeks later, during a secondary review prompted by the discovery of Daniel's body, a detective noticed something else. The van did not exit the lot the same way it entered. Its taillights move in a direction inconsistent with a simple drive-through. For a moment, they angled toward the row where Daniel's car is parked, just outside the camera's field of view. There is no footage of Daniel entering the van. There is also no footage of him leaving the lot on foot. That absence became the center of the case. Forensic analysis of Daniel's car revealed something overlooked during the initial inspection. On the interior of the driver's side door frame, near the lower hinge, technicians recovered a partial palm print. It did not belong to Daniel. The print matched Michael Trent. When confronted, Trent acknowledged being at Southridge Plaza that night. He said Daniel had called him unexpectedly and asked for a ride. He claimed Daniel got into the van willingly and that they drove for less than 10 minutes before Daniel asked to be let out near the freight warehouse. According to Trent, that was the last time he saw him. What Trent did not explain was why Daniel's phone stopped transmitting data within minutes of the van's arrival. Cell tower records show Daniel's phone went offline at 9:53 p.m. Not dead, not powered down normally, disconnected. Later examination revealed the phone had been manually disabled and removed from the network. It was never recovered. The medical examiner's report added another detail. Daniel's cause of death was listed as blunt force trauma to the head. The injury was not immediately fatal. Based on lividity and internal findings, Daniel likely survived for a short period after the injury. There were no defensive wounds. There were no signs of restraint. There was no indication of a prolonged struggle. This suggested proximity, familiarity, a situation where Daniel did not anticipate harm. Then came the detail that changed how the entire timeline was understood. Embedded in Daniel's clothing fibers were traces of industrial plastic wrap, the type used to secure shipping pallets. The same wrap Michael Trent purchased in bulk 2 weeks ago, according to transaction records tied to his logistics work. Investigators realized something else. Daniel had not been killed at the warehouse access road. That location was a deposit point. The injury pattern indicated Daniel was struck inside a vehicle or enclosed space. The lack of disturbance at the scene supported this. He was placed there after the fact. The parking lot was not where Daniel disappeared. It was where he was transferred. The meeting at Southridge Plaza was not to talk. It was to move him. Everything Daniel did that night, parking carefully, standing still, waiting, aligned with someone expecting a brief interaction, not a confrontation, not violence. The twist was not that Daniel trusted the wrong person. It was that the camera never showed the crime, because the crime did not happen on camera. It happened in the silence just beyond the frame. And for weeks, that silence was mistaken for absence rather than evidence.
Once the focus shifted from disappearance to homicide, the investigation changed direction, but it did so slowly. In the early stages, detectives worked under the assumption that Daniel Mercer had chosen to meet someone voluntarily, and that whatever happened afterward occurred outside the scope of immediate surveillance. That assumption delayed several critical steps. The Southridge Plaza footage was not reviewed in full resolution until after the autopsy results were finalized. By then, more than 3 weeks had passed. The video system automatically overwrote extended archival data, limiting how much additional footage could be retrieved. When technicians enhanced the remaining footage, they noticed something subtle. At 9:42 p.m., when Daniel exits his vehicle, the camera timestamp skips forward by half a second. It is not a malfunction. It is the result of motion-triggered compression. The system only records at full frame rate when motion is detected. Between 9:43 and 9:49, the camera records intermittently. That means there are gaps. In one of those gaps, lasting just under 3 seconds, Daniel disappears from the recorded area entirely. Not by walking, not by running, simply gone between frames. This is not visible in real time. It only becomes apparent when the footage is examined frame by frame. Investigators realized the van did not need to pull fully into view. It only needed to stop close enough, long enough. The next breakthrough came from traffic camera data. At 9:51 p.m., a white cargo van matching Trent's vehicle is captured passing through an intersection less than a mile south of Southridge Plaza. The timestamp aligns with the estimated window when Daniel's phone went offline. The van's route continues south, toward the freight warehouse. This contradicted Trent's statement that Daniel asked to be dropped off nearby and walked the rest of the way. Further analysis of Trent's phone records revealed deletions. Messages exchanged between Trent and Daniel on August 18th had been erased within hours, not archived, deleted. When asked, Trent said he clears his phone regularly. Investigators also obtained data from Trent's payment apps. On August 19th at 1:12 a.m., Trent received a $1,500 transfer from an unknown account. The account was later traced to a temporary online wallet funded in cash. There was no clear explanation for the transfer. Detectives returned to Daniel's workplace. A coworker came forward with information previously dismissed as irrelevant. On August 16th, Daniel had asked if anyone knew where to buy industrial plastic wrap cheaply. The coworker assumed it was for moving furniture. This detail had not been included in the initial report. Police also re-examined the warehouse access road. Tire impressions previously thought to be overlapping civilian traffic were reclassified. One set of tracks matched the wheelbase and tread pattern of Trent's van. The impression suggested the van stopped briefly, reversed slightly, and then left. No attempt was made to conceal the tracks. It was not a careful disposal. It was a confident one. Despite this, the case stalled. There were no witnesses to the transfer, no footage of Daniel inside the van, no weapon recovered, no phone, no confession. Prosecutors declined to file charges without direct evidence placing Daniel inside the vehicle against his will. Michael Trent retained legal counsel. He stopped cooperating. By December 2022, the case was reclassified as an unsolved homicide. Daniel Mercer's name was removed from the missing persons database and added to a cold case registry. The parking lot camera footage remained the clearest record of his final known movements. It showed a man who did not flee. It showed a man who waited. And it showed how easily a crime can occur just outside the frame, missed not because it was hidden, but because investigators did not initially think to look for it.
In the months following the reclassification of Daniel Mercer's death, the physical evidence remained unchanged. No new footage surfaced. No additional witnesses came forward. No arrest was made. Daniel's family was left with fragments. They received his personal belongings in stages. His backpack was returned first, then his wallet. The car was released last. When Lauren opened the trunk for the first time, it still smelled faintly of motor oil and cardboard. Nothing inside suggested a final destination. Elaine Mercer stopped going to the grocery store on Sundays. Daniel had always driven her. Lauren began handling the errands instead, retracing routes Daniel once took without thinking. The apartment Daniel rented was cleared out in early January. The landlord noted that the unit looked barely lived in. The coffee maker was still on the counter. A calendar on the wall remained turned to August. No dates were circled after the 18th. For investigators, the case settled into files and timestamps. The working theory remained consistent. Daniel met someone he trusted, entered a vehicle voluntarily, and was later killed. The motive was believed to be financial. The exact moment of violence was never determined. Michael Trent was never charged. He moved out of state the following year. His logistics operation dissolved. The white cargo van was sold to a private buyer. By the time detectives attempted to locate it, the vehicle identification number had already been reassigned. Legally, the case stayed open. Practically, it stalled. What remained was the footage. The parking lot camera was reviewed again during a case audit in 2024. Investigators watched it in silence. The same moments, the same pauses, the same stillness. Daniel standing beside his car. Daniel looking toward the far end of the lot. Daniel adjusting his sleeve. Nothing in the footage indicates fear. Nothing suggests urgency. Nothing implies an attempt to escape. That is what makes it difficult to accept. The official explanation given in the early days, that Daniel ran away, does not align with what the camera records. The camera does not show a man leaving his life behind. It shows a man waiting for something brief to conclude. The camera does not lie, but it does not explain. It captures what happens in front of it and nothing more. Somewhere outside its frame, Daniel Mercer's story ended. But inside the frame, his final moments remain preserved. Routine, silent, unchanged. A man steps away from his car in a nearly empty parking lot. A van pauses just out of view. A system fails to record continuously.
and in ordinary moment becomes the only witness to a disappearance that was never supposed to be permanent. This is never seen again.